Breast reconstruction. In women in the United States, breast cancer is the most common cancer and the second most common cause of death from cancer. From the 1980s to 2015, breast cancer mortality rates have declined, and 5-year survival has increased to almost 90%. The American Cancer Society, ACS, adjusted its breast cancer screening guidelines in 2015 and now strongly recommends annual mammograms from age 45 and older. Women aged 40 to 44 should be given the opportunity to begin screening early according to the qualified recommendation. Women 55 and older may switch to biennial screening but should be given the option to continue annual screening if they prefer. The ACS recommendation is that screening mammography should continue so long as a woman is healthy and life expectancy is 10 years or longer. 2. The American Joint Committee on Cancer, AJCC, published its latest 8th edition Cancer Staging Manual, which describes a novel breast cancer staging system that combines the traditional anatomic staging system of tumor size, nodal status, and metastasis, TNM staging, with biologic markers, estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, human epidermal growth factor receptor 2, grade, and multigen assays. Treatment is dependent on the clinical diagnosis and stage of the breast cancer and is usually designed to address the local cancer with breast-conserving therapy with radiation or mastectomy and address the systemic cancer with chemotherapy and endocrine therapy. Breast conservation therapy, ONCOPLASTIC techniques. While lumpectomy combined with adjuvant radiation therapy confers the same survival benefits as mastectomy, post-radiation contracture can cause contour deformities of the breast and nipple areolar deviation toward the location of the lumpectomy. Oncoplastic breast reconstruction, a term coined in the 1980s, prevents these deformities and offers lower morbidity, higher quality of life, and a more natural aesthetic outcome than traditional breast reconstruction techniques following mastectomies. 3. It gives women multiple conservative options if they choose breast-conserving therapy, but also offers them contralateral breast surgery to achieve a symmetric result, or if they are unhappy with the unaffected breast. Careful coordination and communication between the breast oncologic surgeons and reconstructive surgeons is important for the optimal preoperative planning of incisions to achieve both oncologic and aesthetic outcomes. The goals of oncoplastic breast reconstruction are obliteration of dead space, vascular support of the nipple, and tailoring the local tissues to place the nipple areolar complex and the remaining skin and parenchyma in an aesthetically acceptable shape such that post-radiation contractile forces will be concentric so as to prevent distortion. It encompasses 3 main techniques: reduction, mastopexy, intrinsic tissue rearrangement, and adjacent tissue transfer, locoriginal flaps. Certain considerations regarding adjuvant radiation therapy affect surgical planning and technique. Whether or not the patient requires a boost during radiation therapy can affect which type of reconstruction is performed, in order to minimize the degree to which the margins of the lumpectomy cavity are rearranged within the breast. Since the dead space is obliterated, there will not be seroma formation to guide the radiation therapist about the lumpectomy margins. Therefore, either the surgical oncologist or the plastic surgeon must clearly define the margins with clips prior to any rearrangements. It is also preferable to avoid using clips for hemostasis to avoid confusion. Electrocautery or suture ties, ligations are other options for hemostatic control. Consideration should also be given to the amount of tissue rearrangement that will be required in case positive or close margins requires re-excision. Likewise, all tissue excised, especially around the lumpectomy margins, should be oriented and clearly labeled. There are several strategies to deal with the issue of margin status, including staging the oncoplastic reconstruction portion to after the final margins are known or proceeding with immediate reconstruction and the possibility of radiation therapy. Multidisciplinary Breast Conference is an ideal place to discuss these options. Breast reduction strategies are used to treat patients with large and/or taut breasts with anaphylactic disease in which breast-conserving therapy is appropriate. Various breast reduction strategies can be used, but there must be a discussion with the breast surgeon prior to surgery regarding the planned segmental mastectomy incisions. Wise pattern skin reductions afford more flexibility in incision planning for the breast surgeon but have a larger scar burden that the patient must be counseled on. They can be used in combination with various pedicles depending on the location and size of the tumor as well as the planned area and amount of resection. Likewise, vertical breast reductions can be used to accomplish the combined goals of reconstruction and reduction in smaller, less taut breasts and are especially effective for lesions in the 6 o'clock region. Regardless the specific technique chosen, the underlying principles are the same as previously stated, with the lumpectomy location incorporated into the tissue that would be resected in a regular reduction, Fig. 36.1. When adjacent tissue must be recruited into the defect without decreasing the size of the breast or lifting the nipple, local and regional flaps can be used to recreate the shape of the breast. Local flaps include intrinsic parenchymal flaps to support nipple areolar complex vascularity or to fill in dead space. Regional flaps include lateral, medial, and anterior intercostal artery perforator flaps, LICAP, MICAP, and AICAP, as well as the lateral thoracic artery perforator, LTAP, thoracodorsal artery perforator, TDAP, and internal mammary artery perforator, IMAP, flaps. 3 These flaps can be chosen and tailored based on patient breast size, location of the tumor, planned size of resection, anticipated defect, and understanding of radiation effects on this local flap, which mainly includes knowledge of the radiation effects on autologous tissue, which mainly includes fat necrosis. 4 Fat grafting has become a popular adjunct technique in breast reconstruction given its low complication profile, readily available donor site, option to be performed in the outpatient setting, and ability to improve the skin and dermal quality especially in radiated fields. 5 The concern for local recurrence of breast cancer after fat grafting arose after it was shown that a subset group of women younger than 50, with in situ tumors, Ki-67 is greater than or equal to 14, and quadrantectomy had an increased risk of developing a local recurrence event after fat grafting. 6 While several studies have shown there is no increased risk of recurrent breast cancer when compared with breasts that are not fat grafted, 7, 8 They are not sufficiently powered to answer the questions regarding this particular subset. Therefore, it is important to have a careful discussion with the patient while obtaining full consent and long-term oncologic surveillance and follow-up. Typical complications following fat grafting include oil cysts, infection, resorption, and fat necrosis. 8. Options for breast reconstruction. Autogenous, abdominal-based flaps, transverse rectus abdominis muscle, TRAM, single pedicle, double pedicle, free flap, deep inferior epigastric perforator flap, latissimus dorsi musculocutaneous flap, gluteal flap, superiorly based, inferiorly based Rubens flap, thoracoepigastric flap, lateral thigh flap. Breast splitting procedure, alloplastic, silicone gel implant with saline fill, smooth wall, textured wall, round, anatomic shaped combination procedures, latissimus dorsi flap with implant, TRAM flap with implant. Reconstruction after mastectomy. Breast reconstruction after mastectomy typically utilizes an alloplastic device, tissue expander or implant, autologous tissue, or combination of the two. The different methods of breast reconstruction are further described in the following paragraphs and are summarized in box 36.1. Each technique presents with advantages and disadvantages, and the final choice must take into account the extent of skin resection, need for neoadjuvant or adjuvant radiation and chemotherapy, patient body habitus, aesthetic desires, and activity level, box 36.2. Implant reconstruction. Indications. Bilateral reconstruction. Patient requesting augmentation in addition to reconstruction. Patient not suited for long surgery. Lack of adequate abdominal tissue. Patient unwilling to have additional scars on back or abdomen. Small breast mound with minimal ptosis. Relative contraindications. Young age, may need implant replaced multiple times. Patient unwilling to adhere to follow-up. Very large breast, very ptotic breast. Silicone allergy. Implant fear. Previous failed implants. Need for adjuvant radiation therapy. Blondel and Colleagues 9 described a method for approaching the breast in both aesthetic and reconstructive surgery by analyzing the breast footprint or interface with the thoracic wall, conus or the shape and volume of the breast gland, an envelope or the skin and subcutaneous tissue. These factors should be critically analyzed in deciding on reconstructive options. Symmetry should be addressed with the patient and assumed to be a paramount expectation as it leads to better patient-reported outcomes, higher satisfaction, and more self-confidence. Contralateral breast. Breast reconstruction should not be limited to focusing on the affected breast and attaining symmetry to the native breast but must consider patient goals and satisfaction for both breasts. 10. The Women's Health and Cancer Rights Act of 1998, WHCRA, requires by federal law that group and individual health insurance plans pay for all stages of breast reconstruction on the mastectomy side as well as reconstruction of the contralateral breast, prostheses, and treatment of complications of mastectomy including lymphedema. Some women are primarily concerned with eradication of cancer and may opt for the more aggressive surgical option, including contralateral prophylactic mastectomies, especially in patients at high lifetime risk of contralateral breast cancer, for example, those with a pathogenic germline BRCA gene mutation. In the preoperative assessment, patients should be asked if they are comfortable with the contralateral breast being operated on and what if anything bothers them about that breast. Then they should be thoroughly counseled regarding the timing options, scars, risks, benefits, and complications of operating on the contralateral breast. Among patients undergoing unilateral autologous or implant-based reconstruction, the most common contralateral procedure is breast reduction followed by mastopexy and augmentation. 11. Radiation. Any discussion about oncoplastic breast surgery would be incomplete without explaining the effects of radiation on both. Implant-based and autologous reconstruction and timing effects of radiation therapy. Preoperative radiation damages the recipient field and intramammary vessels, increasing the risk of intraoperative vascular complications, minor complications, skin loss, and infection in autologous reconstruction. 12. The higher risk of reconstructive failure, reported to be as high 50%, total complications, capsular contracture, infection, mastectomy flap necrosis, and seroma have led implant-based reconstruction to fall out of favor in the setting of prior radiation. 12. Autologous reconstruction as the ideal method of reconstruction in a patient with prior chest wall irradiation. Although radiation after completion of implant-based reconstruction has lower complications than radiation before implant-based reconstruction, it is never advised to delay cancer treatment for reconstructive purposes. The effects of radiation are more profound on tissue expanders over implants, and studies have shown higher reconstructive failure rates when tissue expanders are radiated compared to permanent implants. 12-14. Finally, adjuvant radiation effects on autologous reconstruction are minor and include an increased risk of fat necrosis, but no additional flap complications or increase in number of revision surgeries, making postoperative radiation of autologous reconstruction more favorable than radiation of implant-based reconstruction. 4. Quality measurements and outcomes. Women undergoing breast reconstruction after mastectomy have been shown to have significantly increased satisfaction scores compared to women with no reconstruction. Bugels and Colleagues 15 evaluated quality of life after immediate or delayed reconstruction with abdominal-based free flaps using the breast Q The results of their study demonstrated high and comparable satisfaction rates after 1 year post-reconstruction, regardless of timing of reconstruction. In a different study, Santosa and colleagues 16 compared quality of life of 2013 women from 11 centers across the United States after autologous and implant-based reconstruction. Satisfaction rates were assessed using the BREASTQ, and it was found that 2 years after reconstruction, women who underwent free flap reconstruction had greater psychosocial and sexual well-being, reporting higher satisfaction rates. When comparing satisfaction rates among different autologous techniques, deep inferior epigastric perforator, DIEP, flap reconstruction seems to provide the highest rates of well-being. 17 Cost-effective analyses have been performed to compare autologous and implant-based techniques. Matros and colleagues 18 suggest that deep flap reconstruction is cost-effective when compared with implants, especially in unilateral cases. Given the higher cost of the index procedure, the cost-effectiveness is maximized in younger patients with good prognosis and longer life expectancy. There are some data supporting that pedicle transverse rectus abdominis muscle, TRAM, flap reconstruction is associated with lower total hospital charges. However, long-term outcomes and potential need for revision surgery or abdominal wall reconstruction make this comparison less reliable. 19. Alloplastic reconstruction. Implant-based breast reconstruction popularized in the 1970s involves either tissue expansion or implant placement and can be performed either in an immediate or delayed fashion. It is generally a better option in thin women with small breasts who desire bilateral reconstruction and have satisfactory tissue coverage of the implants. 20. It is not a first-choice option in a patient who has had or will need radiation. 12. 21. These procedures are quicker, less morbid, and have less recovery time compared to autologous reconstruction. Box 36.2. A 41-year-old woman with left breast cancer who underwent bilateral mastectomy with immediate placement of bilateral tissue expanders with bioprosthetic slings. Final reconstruction was carried out with the exchange of expanders for 533 ml silicone gel breast prostheses. Timing. Immediate versus delayed. The timing of breast reconstruction surgery has evolved from delayed to delayed immediate options. The optimal timing for breast reconstruction after mastectomy remains a controversial topic and difficult decision given added factors such as radiation and various adjunct reconstructive options such as fat grafting and use of a cellular dermal matrix. Factors that weigh heavily to patients in this decision are final reconstructive outcome, number of surgeries involved in the reconstruction, and postoperative complications. Delayed. In the past, breast reconstruction was typically performed in a delayed manner after the mastectomy flaps healed. Delayed reconstruction in the setting of implant-based reconstruction is classically accomplished with 2 stages using a tissue expander to gradually expand the mastectomy flaps and breast pocket followed by exchange for permanent implant. Use of a tissue expander requires weekly visits for expansion and requires a compliant patient who preferably lives close to the clinic. This method traditionally includes use of a cellular dermal matrix to support the tissue expander or implant and can be performed in the subpectoral or, more recently, propectoral plane. Many surgeons delay reconstruction until 6 months after the completion of radiation to minimize the chance for wound healing problems. Immediate breast reconstruction, a newer concept, means that the final reconstructive modality is done at the time of the mastectomy. The advantages of direct-to-implant breast reconstruction are the breast in a day concept, with fewer number of surgeries, quicker return to work, better cosmetic outcome, and psychological benefit. 22 Immediate breast reconstruction does not delay detection of a chest wall recurrence or change oncologic outcomes and is thus considered a safe method of reconstruction. 23 Many surgeons are reluctant to place the added weight and stress of direct expansion on already compromised mastectomy skin, particularly in the cases of thin or bruised mastectomy flaps and when the need for radiation is not definitively known. Additionally, the direct-to-implant method has risks of skin necrosis, nipple necrosis, seroma, infection, and implant exposure, leading to increased costs particularly in older patients with large implants. 22 This may be the appropriate choice of reconstruction for a young, thin, healthy, non-smoker. With small breasts, who desires to be approximately the same size, who has thick and well-perfused mastectomy skin flaps. 20. Delayed immediate reconstruction was first described in 2004 and referred to the immediate placement of tissue expanders at the time of skin-sparing mastectomies, followed by delayed reconstruction in the case of radiation, and immediate reconstruction, implants or autologous, in the case of no radiation. Fig. 36.2.24 Because radiation makes such a profound difference on the complication rates and aesthetic outcomes, especially when using implants, the delayed immediate method of reconstruction is generally preferred. The delayed immediate method allows those who do not require radiation to achieve aesthetic outcomes similar to those undergoing immediate reconstruction, and allows those who require radiation to avoid complications associated with radiating an implant that is placed immediately. 24. Location of implant, propectoral versus subpectoral. Traditional two-stage implant-based breast reconstruction involved maximization of muscular coverage in a total musculofascial pocket and has evolved to partial subpectoral coverage with use of a cellular dermal matrix as a sling at the inferior border of the pectoralis major. 25. 26. The thought was that muscle coverage of the tissue expander and final implant was necessary in a radiated field to protect against wound dehiscence, infection, and wound healing complications. Figs. 36.3 and 36.4. As the pendulum has swung from subglandular to subpectoral, and now potentially back to subglandular breast augmentation, so has implant position in breast reconstruction. Propectoral breast augmentation, first used in 1971, has been modified due to advances in surgical technique and mainly in refinements of newer generation tissue expanders and implants. The focus on enhanced recovery after surgery protocols and limiting pain and prescription of narcotics further pushes surgeons away from more invasive subpectoral dissection, which carries with it increased risks of animation deformity, muscle spasms, postoperative pain, and longer operative times. Propectoral breast reconstruction carries a higher risk of surgical site infection when compared to subpectoral in the irradiated breast, but also has a lower risk of overall complications, capsular contracture, hematoma, and reconstructive failure. 27. Propectoral reconstruction is performed by creating a new pocket anterior to the pectoralis muscle and can be done immediately. Or delayed, in 1 or 2 stages, with saline or air in the tissue expander, and with or without a cellular dermal matrix. Fig. 36.5. Propectoral reconstruction should be discouraged in patients with a high risk of infection or those with thin poorly perfused mastectomy skin flaps. 28. The advantages of decreased pain, muscle spasm, and overall complications with propectoral reconstruction should be weighed against the disadvantages of increased surgical site infection when compared to subpectoral reconstruction. Complications in implant-based reconstruction include hematoma, inferior suspension A, pectoralis major muscle, contoured wound dehiscence, malposition, deflation, adverse scarring, capsular contracture, mastectomy skin flap necrosis, infection, seroma, extrusion, reconstructive failure, and venous thromboembolic events. 12. 29. The total complication risk is increased particularly in the setting of preoperative radiation, 25% complication rate vs. 13.9% complication rate without radiation. Postoperative radiation, odds ratio 6.4, obesity, odds ratio 1.8, larger breast size, odds ratio 2.89, and smoking, odds ratio 2.2-3.07, 0.12. 29. Many patients are still under the impression that implants should be exchanged every 10 years. These patients should be counseled that this is not necessary. but complications should be explained thoroughly so they can promptly address any problems with their tissue expanders or implants. Smoking and obesity, body mass index, BMI, greater than 25, have proven increased risk of complications in reconstructive failure, especially in implant-based reconstruction, and may preclude surgery. 29 Complications in breast reconstruction are extremely important to avoid and address promptly because in addition to added financial burden on the patient, they can cause a delay in chemotherapy treatments, affecting oncologic outcomes. Poor cosmetic outcome and need for revision surgeries are additional risks that can be limited by meticulous surgical planning and patient selection. Autologous breast reconstruction. Autologous breast reconstruction utilizes the patient's own tissue instead of prosthetic devices. This offers the advantages of no tissue rejection and ability to resurface the skin envelope if deficient, damaged, or absent. Additionally, it provides a more natural shape and texture. Proportional changes in size and contour of the breast with the rest of the body following weight changes, as well as potential improvement in the contour of other parts of the body that serve as donor sites. Schematic representation of implant position, pectoralis position, and chest wall. The pectoralis muscle cannot cover the inferior pole of the breast, and bioprosthetic material is needed in the area of greatest expansion. Schematic representation of chest wall, breast, pectoralis muscle, bioprosthetic sling, and implant. Bioprosthetic material is sutured to the inferior border of the pectoralis muscle superiorly, the inframammary fold inferiorly, and curved laterally along the chest wall to recreate the footprint of the breast for expansion. Schematic representation of implant position, pectoralis position, and chest wall. The pectoralis muscle remains attached to the chest wall and the implant is placed in the propectoral plane, with or without bioprosthetic material reinforcement. Transverse rectus abdominis muscle flap reconstruction. Indications: breasts of all sizes, breast ptosis. Relative contraindications: smoking, abdominal liposuction, previous abdominal surgery, pulmonary disease, obesity. Contraindications: previous abdominoplasty. Patient unable to tolerate 4 to 6 week recovery period. Patient unable to tolerate longer procedure. History of radiation and/or infection is a common indication for autologous breast reconstruction given the often extensive radiation injury to skin and soft tissues. On the other hand, autologous breast reconstruction often requires longer operative time, involves additional surgical sites, and is associated with the potential risk of partial or complete flap loss. Pedicle flaps, TRAM. Latissimus, pedicle flaps maintain their blood supply as they remain attached to the donor site, in contrast with free flaps, in which the vascular pedicle is being divided and reconnected to the recipient vessels in the chest using microsurgical technique. Pedicle flaps offer the advantages of autologous tissue reconstruction utilizing tissue adjacent to the breast. The most reliable pedicle flaps include the TRAM flap and the latissimus dorsi, LD, muscle flap. Latissimus dorsi reconstruction. Indication small breast. Minor breast ptosis. Abdominal donor site unavailable, e.g., scars, lack of tissue, salvage of previous breast reconstruction. Relative contraindications: planned postoperative radiation therapy, bilateral reconstruction, significant breast ptosis. Contraindications: previous lateral thoracotomy, very large breast in patient who does not desire reduction. The first description of the rectus abdominis muscle, RAM. Texture: proportional changes in size and contour of the breast with the rest of the body following weight changes. Flap for breast reconstruction was published in 1979 by Robbins, which included a vertical skin paddle. The technique evolved and a transverse skin paddle was first described by Hartranft in 1982. Tram flap places the scar in a more acceptable location similar to an abdominoplasty scar. The lower abdominal area provides soft tissue of similar consistency to the breast with favorable results. In this setting, the tram flap is receiving blood supply from the superior epigastric vessels. These connect with the deep inferior epigastric (DI) vessels via a rich circuit known as choke vessels, usually above the level of the umbilicus. The entire tram flap with various skin paddles can be reliably harvested based on the superior epigastric vessels after ligating the inferior epigastric system. For unilateral breast reconstruction, usually the contralateral tram is used to facilitate inset by decreasing the arc of rotation and subsequently the risk of vascular compromise from pressure on the pedicle. The perfusion of the tram flap skin paddle has been evaluated by several studies. There are 4 distinct zones. Perfusion is most reliable over the tram on the side of the pedicle, zone I, followed by the area of the contralateral tram, zone 2. Following is the region. Lateral to the ipsilateral tram, zone 3, and, lastly, the region lateral to the contralateral tram, zone IV, Fig. 36.6. In the case of bilateral breast reconstruction, both trams can be harvested and used for the contralateral side with the muscles and vascular pedicles crossing in the epigastric area. The skin paddle is bisected in the midline. Care must be taken to create adequate space for both. Flaps in the epigastric area, often accounting for possible postoperative edema and avoiding pressure on the pedicles. Disadvantages of the pedicle tram flap include epigastric bulge, the potential for partial flap loss, or fat necrosis when the metabolic demands of the tissue are not met, especially in large flaps, as well as longer recovery period with risk of abdominal wall weakness, bulge, or hernia. 31 Patients who are obese or have a history of smoking and multiple comorbidities present with a higher risk for complications. Previous abdominoplasty is considered an absolute contraindication, while previous suction-assisted lipectomy or abdominal surgeries are relative contraindications, in which assessment of vascular supply with computed tomography angiogram, CTA, may be warranted. In a high-risk patient or when the reliability of the vascular supply of the tram flap is questionable, the procedure can be staged with ligation of the DI vessels and delayed final reconstruction 2 to 3 weeks later in an attempt to reduce the risk of vascular complications. 33 Alternatively, 2 vascular pedicles can be used, supercharged tram flap, or the DI vessels can be anastomosed in the chest with the internal mammary or thoracodorsal vessels using microsurgical technique, turbocharged tram flap, improving vascular supply of the flap, box 36.3.34. The LD muscle or myocutaneous flap is another alternative for autologous reconstruction using a pedicle flap. It was first described by Tansini in the late 1800s for coverage of radical mastectomy defects, and since then, several modifications have been developed to improve reliability and volume of the flap. 31, 35, 36 The LD is a broad flat muscle on the back with attachments to the spine medially and the posterior iliac crest inferiorly and inserts into the humerus. The LD flap is based on the thoracodorsal vessels, branching off the subscapular axis. A large skin paddle can be included in the flap, allowing resurfacing of the breast skin envelope. The skin paddle is often centered over the muscle and designed at an oblique or horizontal orientation to allow for tension-free closure but also placement within the bra line. Fig. 36.7. The LD flap. Provides adequate coverage of the anterior chest and can be used alone for reconstruction of women who desire a small size breast. Vascular territories of the abdominal wall provided by a unilateral pedicle transverse rectus abdominis muscle flap, as determined by Moon and Taylor. Blood flow is best in zone I, followed by zones 2, 3, and IV. Schematic representation of latissimus dorsi flap. A. Flap elevation. B. Flap transposition. C. Flap inset. Several techniques have been described to increase the volume of the LD flap, including harvesting of the supramuscular and subscapular fat, known as extended latissimus flap, fat grafting in a one-stage or multiple-stage procedure, or addition of an implant. See later. Combined reconstruction. 0.36. 37 advantages of the LD flap include reliable anatomy and favorable location in close proximity to the breast. Axillary dissection of the muscular insertion and pedicle can be challenging in patients with previous radiation in the area and should be performed with caution. Additionally, limiting dissection in the axillary and lateral chest region is essential for a pleasing aesthetic outcome and avoiding lateral chest fullness from prominent pedicle. Regarding donor site morbidity, seroma is a commonly reported complication. Its risk can be minimized with the use of quilting sutures and drains. Postoperative animation deformity from muscular contractions can be prevented or treated at a later stage by denervating the LD muscle and/or disinserting it from the humerus. Box 36.4. In case the thoracodorsal pedicle has been divided accidentally or during the axillary lymph node dissection, the flap can be converted to a free flap or raised on the serratus muscle branches of the thoracodorsal pedicle, if the injury is more proximal. The muscle-sparing TDAP flap has been described as an alternative to the traditional LD myocutaneous flap, in which case the muscle is split but not harvested with the flap, minimizing donor site morbidity and risk of seroma. 0.38. Free flaps. MS-TRAM, DEEP, SIEA, PAP-TUG, SGAP, IGAP, preoperative planning, SPY, and postoperative monitoring. Abdominal-based flaps. Lower abdominal soft tissue and skin can be utilized for breast reconstruction as free tissue transfer. 0.31. The dominant blood supply of the region is the dipedicle of the external iliac system, including the artery, DIEA, with its venae comitans. The DIEA provides robust blood supply to the ram and overlying soft tissue, which decreases the risk of partial flap necrosis and fat necrosis when the tissue is harvested as free flap compared to pedicled. Additionally, free tissue transfer avoids the epigastric bulge that is often a result of the rotation of the pedicle in a tram flap. Experience with this flap has allowed for significant advances in the surgical technique the last 20 years. Instead of harvesting the entire ram, plastic surgeons are now aiming for muscle-sparing techniques. The internal mammary vessels are commonly used as recipient vessels, even though axillary vessels, such as the thoracodorsal, can be reliably utilized. The topography of DIEA perforators has been analyzed extensively, illustrating medial and lateral row vessels. The perfusion zones are different compared to the pedicle tram flap. Blood supply is more reliable over the muscle on the side ipsilateral to the pedicle, zone I, followed by the area lateral to the ipsilateral muscle, zone 2. Following is the region of the contralateral ram, zone 3, and, lastly, the area lateral to the contralateral muscle, zone IV, Fig. 36.8. The dominance of these perforators varies among patients, but studies have demonstrated that reliable perforators are expected to be encountered 5 cm around the umbilicus. 0.31. 39 in an attempt to minimize donor site morbidity, the muscle-sparing TRAM, MS-TRAM, free flap was developed. In this approach, only muscle around the perforators is harvested, preserving part of the ram and rectus fascia. Recent advances in microsurgical techniques in perforator dissection have allowed refined harvest of abdominal flaps based off multiple perforators or even a single dominant perforator, making this a true perforator flap, also known as deep flap. 39. This approach allows for muscle-in. Fascia-sparing flap harvest, also preserving innervation, minimizing the risk for abdominal wall weakness or postoperative bulge and hernia, often avoiding the use of mesh during the donor site repair. Vascular territories of the abdominal wall provided by a unilateral free transverse rectus abdominis muscle or unilateral deep inferior epigastric artery flap, as determined by Moon and Taylor. Blood flow is best in zone I, followed by zones 2, 3, and IV. Schematic of lower abdomen markings for autologous reconstruction based on the medial and lateral row of perforators, which are based on the deep inferior epigastric artery system. An alternative option is utilizing the superficial inferior epigastric artery and vein, SIEA and SIEV, flaps or the superficial. Circumflex iliac vein, branching off the common femoral vessels. This pedicle exists in approximately 30% of patients and is prone to vasospasms. However, it allows for flap harvest without violating the rectus sheath, eliminating the risk of abdominal wall weakening. Fig. 36.12. Park and colleagues 40 presented their experience with 145 SIEA flaps in a single institution. The authors suggest identifying the superficial vessels and performing a palpability test to determine if the SIEA is reliable to support flap perfusion. Even when the SIEA is not reliable for flap harvest, an adequate length of the SIEV should be harvested in case additional venous outflow is required, especially in bulky flaps. In this case series, patients who suffered postoperative arterial thrombosis or required intraoperative anastomotic revisions had low chances of flap salvage. The total flap loss rate was 8%, with 4.8% secondary to anastomotic complication. 10.3% of flaps had partial necrosis, and there were no hernias or bulges in 31 months of average follow-up. 0.40 is a general guide. In cases where a reliable SIEA is identified, the flap can be based on the SIEA and SIEV. If the robust DIA perforators are identified with good caliber and dissection can be performed without dividing the muscle, a deep flap is preferred. Otherwise, if small caliber perforators are encountered and not aligned over the medial or lateral row, a MS-TRAM flap is performed to ensure flap viability. A recent meta-analysis performed by the American Society Perforators, lateral branch of deep inferior epigastric of plastic surgeons, ASTS, breast reconstruction work group demonstrated that pedicle TRAM flaps have a higher rate of hernias compared to deep flaps, 3.50% vs. 0.74%, but slightly lower rates of bulging, 3.50% vs. 4.62%, 0.39. The latter may be explained by the higher probability of mesh use in pedicle TRAM flap reconstruction. In pedicle TRAM flaps, the total flap loss rate ranged from 0 to 0.2% and partial flap loss rate up to 8.5%, whereas deep flaps had a total flap loss rate of 0 to 4.7% and a partial flap loss rate of 1.8% to 4.7%. 0.39. In a different study analyzing 3,310 abdominally based flaps for immediate unilateral breast reconstruction, the rates for off reparation for the revision of a vascular anastomosis for pedicle TRAM, free TRAM, deep, and SIEA flaps were 0.0%, 1.72%, 2.66%, and 5.64%, respectively. 0.19 Other studies agree with these results. 0.17, 31 Chang and colleagues 41 compared the outcomes of bilateral autologous breast reconstruction at a single institution. Bilateral reconstruction had a higher flap loss rate but equivalent complication rates compared to unilateral. Patients undergoing bilateral immediate, delayed reconstruction had increased rates of revision surgery on the contralateral side of prophylactic mastectomy to achieve symmetry. Preoperative pictures of a patient with right breast cancer who underwent nipple-sparing mastectomy with lymph node dissection and contralateral prophylactic nipple-sparing mastectomy followed by immediate reconstruction with bilateral deep inferior epigastric perforator flaps. B. Patient is presented 3 months after initial reconstruction. C. Postoperative pictures 6 weeks after bilateral breast revision, fat grafting, and abdominal donor site revision. Schematic representation of the superficial inferior epigastric artery flap in which abdominal wall fascia is undisturbed. A. Deep inferior epigastric perforator flap, in which all muscle is spared. B. And muscle sparing transverse rectus abdominis muscle flap, in which a small window of muscle is taken around the supplying perforators. C. Patients with a history of abdominoplasty or absence of excess lower abdominal tissue are not candidates for this procedure. For patients undergoing bilateral breast reconstruction, realistic counseling should be provided regarding expected postoperative reconstructed breast size, often limited by the amount of tissue available. Thigh-based flaps. The medial thigh donor site is another option for free tissue transfer for breast reconstruction that has received more popularity recently. 0.42-44 It is usually considered for women with previous abdominal scars or inadequate lower abdominal tissue. These flaps can be based on the gracilis vascular supply, harvested as a myocutaneous or as a true perforator flap based on the profunda femoris artery perforator (PAP). The orientation of the skin paddle can be transverse, a transverse upper gracilis, duct, a vertical, VUG, or a diagonal, duct, flap, figs. 36.1 and 36.13. The scar of the tug flap is hidden in the upper inner thigh, compared to the PAP flap, which results in a more posterior scar. Bilateral thighs can be used for unilateral or bilateral breast reconstruction, depending on the amount of available tissue. In unilateral breast reconstruction requiring large volume to match the contralateral side, stacked flaps from both thighs can be utilized with excellent results. Microvascular anastomoses are being performed either to separate recipient vessels, i.e., antegrade and retrograde to internal mammary vessels, or by connecting one flap to the other as flow-through design. Complications include wound healing problems, visible scar, and lymphedema, which could be minimized with careful patient selection and flap design. 0.44 Gluteal-based flaps. Gluteal tissue can be utilized alternatively for autologous breast reconstruction based on the superior and inferior gluteal artery and vein. 0.43 It is considered for patients who have had previous abdominal surgery including abdominoplasty or inadequate abdominal tissue to support breast reconstruction. The lateral thighs or buttocks often provide enough adipose tissue and scar placement is favorable, hidden at the waist or the inferior gluteal crease. The consistency of the fat in the area is firm, which results in a reconstructed breast that is less soft but with significant projection that is often maintained over time. These flaps were initially described as myocutaneous flaps, with significant donor site morbidity. More recently, these flaps are harvested as muscle sparing a true superior or inferior. Gluteal artery perforator, SGAP or IGAP, flaps, which limits contour deformity, muscle weakness, and sciatica, Figs. 36.14 to 36.17. Disadvantages include difficulty in flap harvest, the need for intraoperative positioning changes, short pedicle length, size discrepancy between the gluteal vein and the commonly used recipient vessels in the chest or the axilla, as well as potential buttock contour deformity. Despite the technical difficulties, in experienced hands, these flaps can provide sufficient tissue for reconstruction with reasonable donor site morbidity. In the case of bilateral reconstruction, this is often staged given the necessary positioning changes that can prolong operative time significantly. Preoperative imaging, CTA has been proposed to facilitate preoperative planning. Preoperative imaging, CTA has been proposed to facilitate preoperative planning, even though it is not considered standard of care and recommended to be used on a case-by-case basis or upon surgeon experience. It provides information regarding the location and intramuscular course of perforators. In a recent study, Vargas and colleagues 45 assessed the impact of preoperative CTA on the outcomes of abdominal perforator-based autologous breast reconstruction at a single institution for a 10-year period. The use of CTA significantly increased with time and was found to be associated with high BMI, history of previous abdominal surgery, and bilateral reconstruction. Ischemia-related complications were decreased in the CTA group, but this was not statistically significant. Given the associated costs, radiation exposure, and questionable impact on patient outcomes, it should be reserved for select patients. Similarly, preoperative imaging is not necessary for myocutaneous gracilis-based flaps, TUG, VUG, DUG, even though it is recommended for PAP flaps, which are truly perforator-based. 0.44 CTA for planning of perforator flap reconstruction, DIEP, SIEA, or PAP, should be ordered according to the recommended protocol, which obtains 1 mm slices instead of the typical 3 mm slices of a regular computed tomography of the abdomen and pelvis. Magnetic resonance angiography, MRA, even though more costly, is an alternative modality that has been shown to provide accurate visualization of abdominal or thigh perforators, avoiding ionizing radiation. 0.46 monitoring. Postoperatively, the flap can be monitored by assessing color, turgor, temperature, and capillary refill. A cool, pale flap with minimal or no bleeding from the wound edges in. Delayed capillary refill of more than 2 to 3 seconds is likely suffering from arterial insufficiency. A hyperemic or purple, edematous, warm flap with rapid capillary refill of less than 2 seconds and, or rapid, dark oozing from wound edges is indicative of venous congestion. Both scenarios require attention and re-exploration. A handheld Doppler device is very useful to assess for arterial and venous signals and can provide valuable information. Fluorescent angiography can also be utilized intraoperatively to assess vascular supply of the flap. In this technique, indocyanine green is injected intravenously and a probe is used to assess perfusion of the cutaneous territory of the flap. The device is linked to a computer screen, which displays flap perfusion in real time. This technique is also useful to evaluate the perfusion of the mastectomy flaps or the nipple areolar complex in nipple-sparing mastectomy. Typical marking of the transverse upper gracilis flap. B. The anterior portion of the flap is dissected first off the underlying adductor longus. The pedicle, medial circumflex femoral artery, is identified at the dorsal border of this muscle. C. Posterior portion of the skin island is lifted off the underlying muscle. The overlying skin is supplied by multiple perforators arising from within the gracilis. D. A. After complete skin dissection, the gracilis muscle is cut at its tendinous junction. Postoperatively, close flap monitoring by experienced personnel is critical and can predict successful outcomes. Physical exam remains the most reliable method of monitoring. Skin color, turgor, temperature, capillary refill, and Doppler signals evaluated in a unit allowing for early nurse checks is key for early detection of flap failure. Transfer tissue is susceptible to ischemia due to venous congestion or arterial insufficiency, leading to fat necrosis, partial or complete flap loss unless immediate intervention is pursued. Near-infrared spectroscopy is a continued method to monitor the flap, usually used in conjunction with physical exam and flap checks. A probe is applied on the flap skin paddle and measures oxygenation of the superficial tissue, no more than 2 cm in depth. The readings of the probe are displayed on a screen bedside with continuous readings. Correlating to blood flow and tissue perfusion. A sudden and persistent drop in tissue oxygenation indicates an acute event affecting perfusion of the flap, which can precede changes in physical examination, allowing for timely intervention. The readings of the monitor can now be wirelessly transmitted to the surgeon's computer or cell phone, allowing for remote flap monitoring. Superior gluteal vessel dissection through the retracted gluteus maximus muscle. SGAP, superior gluteal artery perforator. Skin island location of superior gluteal artery perforator, gap, and inferior gap flaps. The skin paddle can be oriented over the superior or inferior gluteal artery. Implantable Doppler devices can be used to monitor free flaps that are completely buried and do not have an external skin paddle. A Doppler probe is being attached to the vascular pedicle at the level or just distal to the anastomosis and is connected to an external device which continuously monitors the flow of the microvascular anastomosis. For example, in patients who undergo nipple-sparing mastectomy, no skin paddle is required for breast envelope resurfacing. In that case, the flap can be completely buried under the mastectomy flaps and implantable Doppler devices can be used for flap monitoring. Frey and colleagues 47 compared outcomes of reconstruction with buried free flap versus free flap with skin paddle after nipple-sparing mastectomy. Comparing the two groups, there were no differences in flap loss rates or reparation rates. However, the mean number of revisions was higher in the buried flap reconstruction group. Complications. Complications associated with autologous breast reconstruction include partial or total flap loss and problems related to the donor site. Fat necrosis can present later as a firm nodule. Free MS-TRAM or deep flaps have lower rates of partial flap loss, fat necrosis, and abdominal wall weakness, bulge, or hernia compared to pedicle TRAM flaps. On the other hand, free flaps, in general, have relatively higher rates of complete flap loss. Chemotherapy has little effect on the outcomes of breast. Fig. 36.14 Skin island location of reconstruction. As long as surgical procedures are delayed after neoadjuvant therapy and adjuvant chemotherapy is not performed before surgical sites are healed and the patient has recovered from surgery. On the other hand, radiation therapy can impact autologous reconstruction. Reconstruction after completion of radiotherapy is associated with higher rates of complications compared to no radiation, and patients should be counseled appropriately. However, autologous reconstruction after radiation is still the preferred method of reconstruction when compared to no reconstruction or immediate autologous reconstruction with postoperative adjuvant radiation as the complication rates are acceptable and the aesthetic outcomes are superior. On the other hand, immediate autologous reconstruction followed by radiation has complication rates up to 50% and aesthetic outcomes are significantly inferior due to the effects of ionizing radiation to soft tissues, causing cellular injury and fibrosis, with subsequent wound healing complications, contour deformities, and tissue firmness. 12. 39 data support that immediate breast reconstruction typically does not delay initiation of adjuvant treatments including radiation and chemotherapy. However, all surgical sites need to be healed to avoid further complications. 39, 48. Combination of reconstruction techniques with or without implants. Fig. 36.15 Superior gluteal vessel dissection. In patients who desire large-size reconstructed breasts or have lower amounts of subcutaneous fat, a combination of autologous and implant-based breast reconstruction can be considered. Often, the amount of tissue available in the lower abdomen, inner thighs, or gluteal region is not sufficient to provide the desired result. In these cases, a combination of free flaps can be utilized, anastomosed with separate recipient vessel in the chest and the axilla or anastomosed in continuity, performing intraflap anastomosis, also known as stacked flaps. 42-44 This technique requires technical expertise, an experienced team, and a two-surgeon approach, and the patient must be medically fit for a prolonged operation as well as agreeable to multiple donor sites. Secondary fat grafting can be performed to increase volume if the tissue to reconstruct the envelope is sufficient. Alternatively, autologous tissue breast reconstruction can be combined with implant placement, with or without a cellular dermal matrix support. The implant placement can be performed immediately or in a delayed fashion, depending on the size of the flap and the desired size of the implant. The acellular dermal matrix can be used as a sling attached laterally, inferiorly, and medially or circumferentially, to provide more fixed support, preventing displacement or pressure on the flap. The cost of reconstruction should be considered in these cases with judicious utilization of that technique when necessary. Schematic of the gluteal perforator flap, inset into the defect via the internal mammary vessels, and donor site closure. Nipple areolar reconstruction. Nipple areolar reconstruction is an important part of breast reconstruction. The goal is to create symmetric nipples and areolas on both breasts of appropriate size, location, shape, color, and texture, providing an aesthetically pleasing result. Nipple projection is important at this stage. In unilateral breast reconstruction, the optimal technique depends on the size and position of the contralateral breast. Commonly, a nipple areolar reduction technique enhances the aesthetics of the contralateral breast, offering tissue that can be utilized for reconstruction of the affected breast. Simple triangulation measurements may not be applicable, since the shape of the reconstructed breast is often different compared to the contralateral native breast, even if symmetry mastopexy has been performed. The nipple can be reconstructed with multiple techniques, including local flaps, grafts, injectable fillers, engineered tissue substitutes, or combinations of these. 49 Several local flaps have been described utilizing the skin of the breast mound, such as the T, S, skate, star, wrap, H, propeller, CV, arrow, cigar roll, VV, and rolled triangular dermal fat flap. Postoperative contraction is to be anticipated, so the reconstructed nipple is designed 25% to 50% larger than the desired final size. Local flap techniques have similar outcomes and complication rates, and the selection process depends on the presence of previous scars and surgeon preference. Loss of projection, partial flap loss, and need for minor revisions are potential complications to be considered. In an attempt to avoid loss of projection and contraction, the use of augmentation grafts has been described. Autografts, i.e., costal, auricular cartilage, or fat, do not undergo rejection. However, they add donor site and may still undergo degradation with loss of projection over time. Allogenic grafts, i.e., a cellular dermal matrix, incorporate to local tissues and provide adequate maintenance of projection with reproducible results, no donor site morbidity, and low complication rates. Synthetic grafts have been used in the past, including silicone, Teflon, and hydroxyapatite-based materials with high extrusion and overall complication rates. The contralateral nipple can be used as donor site in women with large nipples. Part of the nipple and potentially areolar complex are used as composite grafts, providing excellent color and texture match. Despite the additional donor site morbidity, studies have shown satisfactory long-term nipple projection with minimal complications. The areola can be reconstructed either by using skin grafts or medical tattoo. 0.49 Skin grafts can be harvested from the groin area, which is naturally more hyperpigmented, or from the contralateral areola combined with mastopexy. Medical tattooing has demonstrated remarkable advances, with great variety in colors to match any skin type and ability to simulate the natural areola in a three-dimensional fashion. The most important component of nipple areolar reconstruction is correct timing and planning. 0.49 Previous radiation, scarring, or failed previous attempted should be taken into consideration. Most importantly, it should not be performed before the final shape, size, and contour of the breast mound are finalized, since major revisions can change the position of the reconstructed nipple areolar complex. Nipple reconstruction is usually performed as an office procedure after breast reconstruction is complete. It could be performed in the operating room in conjunction with other minor revision procedures, provided these will not affect the construct of the reconstructed breast. Revision surgery. Aesthetics of breast reconstruction. Revision surgery after the initial reconstruction has become a common part of the reconstructive pathway for women undergoing mastectomy. Regardless of the type of reconstruction, implant-based versus autologous breast revisions can optimize the final outcomes and refine the results, achieving the goal of breast reconstruction, offering back the feeling of whole, and providing an aesthetically and functionally pleasing result. Available techniques include fat grafting, scar revision, suction-assisted lipectomy, and mastopexy for symmetry, especially in unilateral cases. Specifically for patients with history of implant-based reconstruction, implant exchange, capsulotomy, capsulectomy, and capsulorrhaphy are commonly performed procedures. Clark Pearson and colleagues 50 demonstrated similar revision rates of approximately 21% in immediate direct-to-implant breast reconstruction compared to tissue expander implant reconstruction in a single institution retrospective review. For patients with a history of autologous-based reconstruction, flap repositioning or debulking, suction-assisted lipectomy, and donor site revision surgery. Are common procedures. Hansen and colleagues 51 performed a retrospective analysis of 139 patients who underwent autologous breast reconstruction with either an abdominal-based free flap or a pedicled LD muscle flap. The revision rates were significantly higher in the latissimus group, 92% vs 67%, even though complication rates were similar. In a different study comparing revision rates in unilateral and bilateral breast free flap reconstruction, younger patients and smokers were more likely to undergo revision surgery. 0.41 Patients who underwent bilateral reconstruction had higher rates of revisions compared to those who underwent unilateral reconstruction, 69% vs 64%, p equals 0.03, with those undergoing bilateral immediate, delayed reconstruction demonstrating the highest rates of revision surgery. The rates of revisions are higher in the close postoperative period for autologous reconstruction. However, implant-based reconstruction often requires multiple revision operations later because of capsular contracture, implant displacement, and changes in the patients. Body habitus. In general, revision procedures should be offered to the patients no sooner than 3 months after their initial procedure or previous revision surgery. A. B. Preoperative view and markings. C. D. Intraoperative views of flap and superior gluteal artery perforator vessels. A. F. Postoperative views, anterior and posterior, 21 months after surgery. Conclusion. Breast reconstruction is a vital component in the treatment of breast cancer for many women. It is often the optimistic portion of a devastating diagnosis. Reconstruction lessens the psychological and physical burden of the diagnosis. When possible, immediate reconstruction is preferred because it does not increase oncologic risk or delay adjuvant therapies, provides improved aesthetic outcomes, and results in less depression, since patients do not experience the results of mastectomy. Planning and decision-making for reconstruction must be individualized to each patient to achieve her desires in the safest and most reasonable fashion. There are advantages and disadvantages of each procedure. Decision-making should be individualized for the patient and her reconstructive surgeon to determine the most rational treatment plan. In the era of changing healthcare policies and increased healthcare costs, the surgeon must take into consideration the parameter of cost-effectiveness to ensure high-quality care with reasonable utilization of available resources.